Mark. Okay, I have 7:29. I'm just going to clean my glasses. It should take approximately 30 seconds. And then we should be able to start. Bernie? I don't see Bernie.
Yeah, I don't see Bernie either. I just sent him a text.
Joe, are you able to see? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 board members. I don't see Liwu or Heather. Do you?
No, I do not.
Sure, if they may be having, I had some trouble getting in and I'm still having some connectivity issues.
All right, I'll ping them.
Going back and forth.
Good evening, everyone.
There he is.
Hey.
Okay, I just texted Liwu and Heather. Let me see if I hear back from either of them. Otherwise, we will start. I hear Bernie. Yes. Hello. The melodious tones of Bernie's voice. Yes. Oh, there's Heather. Okay. Well, I haven't heard back from Liwu, but it is 7:30. So if everybody's ready, we'll start. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Due to the COVID-19 health emergency, and in order for the Board of Education to conduct its business, this board meeting is being held via video conference and streamed live on YouTube on the district website at www.ebnet.org. In addition, members of the public may provide comment at this meeting through Zoom by entering the URL, meeting ID, and password you see before you on the screen. Upon joining the meeting, your participation will be muted to ensure that there is no disruption to the business being conducted by the Board of Education. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Carangelo.
Here.
Mrs. Chu.
Here.
Mr. Sismar.
Mark, you're on mute.
I do see Mr. Sismar on screen.
Yeah, Mark, you're on mute.
I think he's having some technical issues, but
Here. Yeah, I lost my Zoom for a minute.
got it. Thank you. Mr. Hong. Mrs. Lax.
Here.
Mrs. Reese.
Here.
Mr. Winston.
Here.
And President Becker.
Here. Before we rise to salute the flag, I'm going to ask everyone to remain standing after the Pledge of Allegiance for a moment of silence in memoriam for Albert M. Simon. A moment of silence will be observed in memory of Albert M. Simon, who passed away on February 14th. A 57-year resident of East Brunswick, Al served as an East Brunswick Board of Education member for 12 years, from 1973 to 1985. He is survived by his wife of 60 years, Charlotte, 7 children, 27 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. Our thoughts and heartfelt sympathies are with his loved ones. We owe Mr. Simon a great deal of gratitude and debt for what he brought to this district. He and so many former board members are the reason why we are in such a place of excellence as we are today, because of all the groundwork and legwork that they did before us. We honor Mr. Simon, and again, I ask after the pledge for a moment of silence. Please remain standing. We will now rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
Of the
of the
United
United
States.
States of America and to
to
the
the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
One
nation,
Under
under
God,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all.
justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the East Brunswick Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted at the Board of Education offices. Written notice is also provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Star Ledger, the Home Tribune, and the Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings except executive session discussions are videotaped for later broadcasts, and individuals who speak at the board's public meetings should be aware of these videotaping rules. Good evening. Hope everyone is safe on this wintry night. We will start off, as always, with our superintendent report. Dr. Valesky.
Thank you, President Becker. Good evening, everyone. I'm proud to share with you that all 18 East Brunswick High School National Merit semifinalists have moved on to become National Merit finalists.
Wow.
This is a very impressive accomplishment for a single school, and it's a testament to the great work of our students, teachers, and the entire East Brunswick community. This is a scholarship that requires high scores on the 11th grade PSAT, as well as maintaining very high academic performance throughout high school careers. Only about 1% of students are eligible based on these requirements, and they apply for this scholarship with an endorsement from their high school principal. All 18 of the current students in finalist status will receive a certificate of merit, and some will be selected to receive the National Merit Scholarship. Congratulations and good luck to all of them. On Friday, February 12th, over 1,000 certificated staff members and full-time instructional aides took part in 57 workshops that were offered for academic and student services personnel. Supervisors, department chairpersons, and teacher leaders took staff through various workshops focused on instruction, along with student social and emotional learning. The day consisted of 2 1.5-hour sessions in the morning and 1 2-hour session in the afternoon, where staff learned various types of technology implementations and assessment practices that ultimately will be utilized this school year. And then finally, on Wednesday, February 16th, 41 11th and 12th graders from East Brunswick High School were inducted into Mu Alpha Theta Math Honor Society. The guest speaker was Mr. Chang Kai-Hu. He's an East Brunswick High School alum and a 2017 graduate of Columbia University who spoke on the importance of mathematics and critical thinking in the real world. The virtual ceremony and celebration featured pictures of all inductees and invited family, friends, and faculty. Thank you.
I just have to say I am constantly amazed, surprised, and proud of the incredible dedication and commitment our students have, especially to achieve such academic excellence during a year like this, a year like no other. And bravo to all of you. We are moving on to several presentations, and we are going to start out with the annual audit presentation. Bernie?
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening. This evening is the required report on the results of our school district audit ending the period June 30th, 2020. First, we'll have Joseph Crotchfeld, Director of Financial Services, provide some background information, and then Mr. Scott Cleland, partner with Wiss & Company, our independent auditor, will report on his work and the results of the audit. So, Joe?
Bernie, are you going to pull up the
It's coming.
slideshow? Okay, great. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for allowing me to present the 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. As you can see on the screen, we have received the 2 awards for several years in a row. The first one for 7 years in a row, the second one for 5 years in a row. So that's a pretty good accomplishment. I'm very proud of that. Bernie, next slide. So the governmental funds have 4 separate funds: the general fund, special revenue, capital projects, and debt service. Next slide, Bernie. The general fund captures the day-to-day operations of the district: salary, benefits, utilities, supplies and materials. The expenditures were up a little bit from the prior year, but very consistent. Under fund balance, the again, very consistent fund balance of $25 million. That's not free balance. There's reserves, legally required items. The new item for the 2020 year was the last item reported, the $963,000. Due to the savings of transportation not running and the negotiations that Mr. Juliana did with the transportation companies, we're able to bring that money forward and offset some items in the current budget. Next slide. Special Revenue Fund, that captures all the grants, whether it's federal, state, local, including the EBF and PTA. You can see there's slight increases in the IDA and NCLB, which is the title funds. The new item there is the last item reported, the CARES Act. Due to COVID, that was the federal stimulus bill that they put out. We received $529,000 for that. And mainly it went to the purchase of computers. So we had total expenditures of $14 million. Again, very consistent with the prior year. The other item, the last item reported, did increase about $5 million. That captures the items, the construction, the capital purchases that we purchased through lease purchase funds. So we account for that in the Special Revenue Fund. And board, by all means, if you have any questions, please chime in. The Capital Projects Fund, that's where we do construction not related to lease purchase. We had $5.9 million, and about a $3 million increase over the prior year. And that was mainly due to the ESIP program that we are involved in. Bernie, if you hit next, it'll pop up. As the board and public should know, we entered into an energy savings initiative program. We did various improvements, and it's paid for through the savings. So, you know, the district has been very proactive in trying to reduce our carbon footprint and being energy efficient. Next slide. The last governmental fund is debt service. Our balance of bonds payable as of the end of the year was $70 million, about a decrease of $5 million due to refunding, due to paying down of debt. Next slide. Debt service fund analysis. The most important thing to take off this slide is the last bullet point. We are legally able to borrow 4% of the annual average equalized value. So if the board chose, we could go out for bonds for an additional $233 million. And that's been consistent over the last several years. Next slide. Then we have our enterprise funds. The enterprise funds operate with a motive to make money. The child nutrition program, we had a difficult year due to COVID. We totally had to change how we operate. The grab and go meal program since March. We did, have a decrease in operating revenue of about $650,000. We had a decrease in operating expenses of about $500,000, but it wasn't, the revenue going down because of the type of service we were doing really impacted the change in that position. Typically, we bring in about $100,000 profit a year, which is a low amount, but where we want to be with child nutrition so we can make various improvements. This year we lost $23,000. It's the first time, I would say, in probably 8 years that we lost money in this fund. In the lunches, the bottom bullet there, were also decreased compared to the prior year. Next slide.
Excuse me, Joe, before you move on to the next slide, I had a question. You use the term when you introduce the slide, the enterprise funds are geared to make money for the district. And that's not a phrase one usually associates with a school district. So if you could just explain for anyone who's watching, just briefly embellish a bit on that concept.
Sure. So, yes, right. The district is not in the business of making money, right? We're here to educate, to have a budget that's balanced. In accounting terms, the enterprise fund allows the district to make money. Now, in child nutrition, we don't want to make money. We were not trying to overcharge the parents or the students for the meals that they're taking. But as we get into the other slides, you'll see community programs and facility rentals. It's an opportunity for the district to bring in money, make a profit, and put that profit towards the general fund to offset taxes, to allow the district to balance the budget and implement programs. So I believe our district has done an excellent job, especially in community programs, of returning money to the district to allow us to not cut things, over the last several years. So, we're always looking for those opportunities. It's provide a service and also try to make a little bit of money. So COVID definitely had an impact on these financials for June 30th. I hope that.
Thank you for that clarification.
So when we get into community programs, you'll see we had a loss
of $374,000. So our revenues decreased 1.2 million because we weren't offering the number of programs, the early morning, the after school programs for the last 3 or 4 months of the school year. So if we're not running programs, there's no revenue coming in. Unfortunately, we still, from a financial standpoint, unfortunately, we still had the same expenses. We were required to pay all of our staff per state law, which helped people through and prevented unemployment. But the bottom line is it had a negative impact on our financials. So typically we make $800,000 in the community programs fund. So it's a decrease of 1.2 million that we made, and we were not able to transfer any funds over to the general fund. So again, as a direct result of COVID. Next slide. So facilities rentals, we did make a profit of $138,000, but our revenues were down $550,000. March through the beginning of June is really the hot spot for dance recitals, and that's where we take in most of our facility rental money from JM Pack, and we weren't able to do that. So we saw a decrease in revenue of $550,000. We also had a decrease in expenditures. The net result, we made 138,000. Typically, we're around 500,000. So it was a $370,000 decrease from prior years. Next slide. Financial facts, we had cash inflows and outflows very consistent with prior year. We have a good cash on hand balance. Next slide. Bernie, you can just flip through the next several slides. And as you're doing that, I just want to make a comment. You know, for just like the education piece of pivoting to remote and continuing to educate students, we had to pivot in so many ways, from the financial operation, whether it's HR, how we were operating through payroll, paying vendors, serving children meals, offering virtual enrichment programs. We continue to offer virtual early learning academy. So, you know, a school district before COVID, working from home, doing remote, just like instruction, it was a foreign concept. But I'm proud to say, from a financial aspect, we were able to do that and still stay in compliance, still maintain separation of duties, still make sure that the district is in good financial position despite the impact of COVID. And that's not done by me, that's done by, you know, the board, Dr. Valesky, Mr. Juliana, and the whole central office team, and all the support staff that go along with it. So, you know, I just wanted to make that comment. And really, this final slide says it. It's a team effort. I've done this slide a couple times the last prior years, and it really is a team. You know, we all have our roles, and we try to do it the best we can. And I think we do a really good job. So, and the audit kind of supports that. So that's my
presentation. I know Scott has his presentation more on the audit and the outcome of that. And I'll turn it over to him unless the board has any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the hard work and the success of what's been achieved.
Bernie, I couldn't see everyone. Did any board members have any questions, indicate that they had any question on Joe's presentation?
I don't have a view of all the board members with the screen up in this manner, but I didn't hear anyone asking to comment.
All right, when we go back to gallery view, if anybody did want to ask a question, please just raise your hand or chat me. Thank you.
So welcoming Scott Cleland from Wisson Company. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Bernie. Thank you for inviting me tonight as well. And I look forward to presenting the results of the audit. You're going to control the screen again?
Yes.
Good evening, members of the board. I appreciate again the opportunity to be here to present the audit for the 2020 fiscal year. Earlier in the week, I had the opportunity to meet with the administration and finance committee to go over the audit in detail. And what I'd like to do tonight is just piggyback off of what Joe had gone over and speak more from the results of the audit perspective and some of the obstacles that we had to deal with from a COVID perspective. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Valesky and Bernie and Joe and Tara and all of the administrative staff for really going above and beyond this year with helping us get an audit done. We did the entire audit remote, and it involved a lot of questions and feedback going back and forth with various phone call meetings, encrypting, data sharing back and forth. And as usual, the administrative staff stepped up and did a tremendous job helping us get the audit done. With the COVID crisis, the audit is normally due on December 5th. And due to the COVID situation and the lack of information being provided by the state Division of Pensions, the deadline was moved to February 5th of 2021, just a week or so ago. And I'm reporting that the report was filed on time with the state in accordance with the revised statutory requirements. The audit takes a bit of time. And again, again, you guys did not miss a beat. We were very concerned going in regarding how are districts going to handle the compliance to all the statutory requirements, and also to handle not letting the internal controls slip. And during our testing of all the major systems and all the key controls that are operated by the district did not miss a beat. Controls remain strong. You have a very, very strong administrative finance team in place that you should be very, very proud of, because they really, really do a great job. As Joe kind of mentioned, the audit is all inclusive. On this slide, we look at administration, we look at instruction, we look at student services, we look at transportation related items, and there was extra time spent with Bernie this year going over how we settled up the transportation contracts, because it was a unique situation out there. And he did a very good job managing through and negotiating those contracts. Operations, the enterprise fund operations, like your facility rentals, like Joe had mentioned. And also you have internal service fund operations, or your self-insurance for your health plan, which is administered in a separate fund. We look at your capital improvements, and we also look at your debt service. And one thing to mention in the debt service area, the district is very, very proactive in looking at your existing debt. And when the opportunity does arise, they take full advantage of refunding the debt to identify savings. And the refunding of older debt from a 2010 or 2012 that took place this year will result in over $3 million of savings to the school district over the next several years from the interest perspective.
Scott, I just want to interject here for a moment, because for clarity of the, in terms of the public, refunding of debt, that's a term in the industry, but essentially it's a refinancing. So by refinancing the debt in our capital debt, we were able to ultimately see that the district will save in excess of $3 million, as Mr. Cleland noted.
The auditor's objective is we are required to perform procedures, which includes inquiry, observation, confirmation, testing transactions, testing for controls, and testing for compliance. And the ultimate goal is that we have to provide an opinion on those financial statements as to whether they are accurate. And in performing our procedures this year, even under the COVID-19 situation and the pandemic, everything we requested, everything we had to verify, all the procedures we were required to perform by our standards were performed, were able to be performed, and we were able to become comfortable that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles for us to render an unmodified or a clean opinion on those financial statements, which is the highest level of opinion that can be placed on any entity's financial statements. As part of the procedures of the audit, we also look at, as I mentioned previously, internal controls over those financial statements. And we also have to look at internal controls over compliance for such things as bidding and quotes and all the other requirements of the state of New Jersey. And I'm happy to report that there were no findings that were identified that would result in any issues, and no findings at all identified during the course of the audit, which again, is something you should be very proud of, especially under the pandemic circumstances. Next slide. We also are required to look at your federal and state programs. Your largest federal program normally is your IDEA program for special ed students, and that's the program we looked at again this year. And we also look at various state programs, and in all of our procedures, we did not identify any internal control matters or lack of compliance for how your funds were spent for your federal and state programs. Next slide. The report that was presented this evening, and that you have in your hands, is a comprehensive annual financial report, which includes the introductory section, which is a district prepared area, which talks about all the nice accomplishments and some of the issues that were dealt with from COVID-19. The financial section is where the auditor's opinion is located, as well as the financial numbers and related notes. The statistical section is an area in the back of the report that has 20 schedules that has statistical data such as debt limits, number of teachers, teacher-student ratios. It's a good document to look at for general information. And then the fourth category is your single audit section, which is where the information related to your testing of your federal and state programs is documented. Next slide. So I mentioned earlier the results of this year. The operating results were very, very good again. District remains in a very strong financial position, even though we had some losses in some of the enterprise funds due to COVID. And as usual, the financial records were in excellent condition, as Joe mentioned. You should be very proud of the fact that you've received the International ASBO Certificate of Excellence for 7 consecutive years and the GFO Certificate of Achievements for 5 consecutive years. You are one of, I think, 2 or 3 districts that actually is able to receive both of these awards. So that's, again, very proud accomplishment that you should all as a board be very proud of. Thank you. Next one. As I mentioned earlier, there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and really were not any findings this year at all for 2 consecutive years. And in auditing your grants, we also had a clean, unmodified opinion on compliance. Next slide.
That's it.
I think that's it, right?
Yes.
So just in summary, you have a very, very strong financial picture. You have very, very strong financial people in place that do a very, very good job and take their job very, very seriously. And you're very lucky to have a strong administrative group like you do there in East Brunswick. And the boards will be very proud of what you have accomplished from dealing with this pandemic, as well as all the different accolades that continue to come forward to East Brunswick Public Schools. So with that, I'd be more than happy to open it up for any questions you have. And again, thank you again for inviting me to tonight's presentation.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions from board members? I did want to also offer congratulations to our finance team for consistently being awarded those 2 certificates of financial excellence. It's a testimony to their work and dedication. But Joe, I'm going to go back to the slide that you showed in your presentation of the puzzle pieces, because it is a great slide. Because I think that rules and regulations are only as good as they are carried out, not just in terms of accuracy, but in terms of collaboration and coordination. And I think every single member of this district, administrators, support staff, all employees of this district share in these awards to a certain extent, because it is the way that they carry out the financial efficiency of what is said to them that makes us so successful. So kudos to everyone.
Inspector, could I say something?
Of course.
I just wanted to along with you, thank Mr. Giuliano, Mr. Crotchfeld, Mrs. Roseving. They are key players in making the finances of our district so solid. But I also want to thank the Board of Education, because for the community who's listening, behind the scenes, when we had to remove ourselves from our buildings, March 18th of 2020, the board quickly geared up with what I believe were frequent meetings. We had meetings almost every week. And finance meetings were reconstructed by breaking the board down into components of 3 members apiece. We would have them all in the same night, so we would have compliance, but we would go through and we were sharing information with the board at that time about what the immediate impacts of the pandemic were looking like, what we were going to have to do to balance our budget last year, what we were going to have to do to plan for this year. So Scott, I appreciate your audit and your team, and it just goes to show all the hard work that was put in behind the scenes and such a positive result for the taxpayers of East Brunswick. and the prudent fiscal operation of the district. I can't say enough about these people.
Mrs. Becker?
Yep.
So before moving on, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the team. We have a number of members of the Financial Services Department online tonight, and I want them to know from me how much it's appreciated, the hard work and the dedication that they put forth each and every day. I don't think they approach their responsibilities as just being a job. They truly care about this district, and it is a family. And I'm very proud to be associated with this team and for the diligence that they show each and every day. And I thank you very, very much for all of your work. You make all of our lives much calmer, and we breathe easier because of the work that you do.
No doubt.
That was very, very lovely, Bernie. Thank you. Before we proceed, I just want to mention that I've been getting text messages from several board members who are experiencing various internet problems, either with visual or audio, and just apologize if they have to keep going in and out or rebooting. So just wanted to let everyone know that's what's going on. Okay, great audit presentation. Thank you again, Scott. And now I believe we have 3 budget reports. Bernie, Jeff?
Yes, we do. So let me just take a moment here to get the right slide up. And we're off to the races. So this is a continuation of our budget discussions and presentations on the 2022 or 21-22 school district budget. Tonight we have 3 presentations. The first one, I ask Dr. Figueroa to speak with regard to athletics.
Thank you very much, Mr. Giuliano. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to review with you the proposed budget for athletics for the 2021-2022 school year. Athletics helps our students develop positive character traits, lifelong values, and leadership skills. It also helps our students explore their physical abilities in healthy and social environment with their peers. During COVID times, we've had our athletes tell us that sports have helped them relieve stress, both physically and mentally, and provided them with something relatively normal during these difficult times. We can go on. So these are some of the areas covered by the budget, the athletic programs and the competitions. Tonight, I'd like to review for you some of the areas that take up most of the athletic budget. So if we can go to the pie chart, okay. Let's start with athletic uniforms. Athletic uniforms are 13% of the budget. We're on a 4-year cycle. This is a cycle that was created by Mr. Giuliana, Mr. Crotchfeld, Mr. Iannazzo 4 years ago. We'll be starting again 2022 on the new cycle. What's good about this cycle is that every 4 years, the teams get new uniforms, not just the varsity team. What that means is that there are no more hand-me-downs. So there's no more varsity to JV, JV to freshman. Everyone will get new uniforms. And I think our athletes really appreciate that. Also, I'd like to point out another big area, athletic officials fees, 26% on your screen. Now, the New Jersey Interscholastic Athletic Association, or the NJSIAA, have 3-year contracts for officials that we must adhere to. And that's what those numbers are for. Last, I just want to talk a little bit about the contracted transportation. That's 28%, as you see on your screen. That's transportation that's needed for athletic events that we cannot cover with in-house buses. Now, last year, our transportation costs, and Mr. Giuliani, correct me if I'm wrong, were about 55% of our athletic budget. But thanks to the board and the work of Dr. Valesky and Mr. Giuliani, we were able to have 2 additional buses that we can have in use next year. That will save us an additional $123,000. I also want to just mention that when he is aboard, our new supervisor of athletics, Mr. Malta, and I will review each sport this spring and this fall, and we'll come up with some recommendations as we move forward for the coming years. Do you have any questions on the athletic budget?
Bernie, can we go back to the full gallery view? Thank you. Any board members have any questions, comments? Jeff, anything you wanted to add?
I did get a chance to get the preview of this the other night, but I'll tell you, the reporting of the budgets, I did mention this to Mr. Giuliani the other night and Mr. Crotchfeld and et al. The reporting and the way that they're laid out, the pie charts, it makes it so clear and really easy to understand. I know these budgets, which I've dealt with for years, you can get lost in the muck. And so I can just let you know, I greatly appreciate, and hopefully the public does too, that the explanation of where things go and how they'll be spent. I think it's great. So I do appreciate for both myself and all that have an interest in seeing it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Lou. Bernie, special ed?
Yes, so next is special education, and we will be coming back to Dr. Figueroa in a moment, but first we have special education, and I would invite Ms. Kelly Bond, Mrs. Bond, to speak on her department.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening and to share the proposed special education budget. I'm always happy and proud to share the important work of the special education department. I have sincere respect for all the people within it that make the department great, so I want to take a moment to thank all of them. And also to thank this board, Dr. Valesky and Dr. Figueroa, for all the support that has been given to me since joining the team, the department, and then in turn, the students within it. The proposed budget supports the mission and the principles of the special education department. The heart of our work is truly to take care of students. In addition, our actions must align with the New Jersey Administrative Code and federal regulations. This slide demonstrates many of the requirements the staff within the special education department are responsible for. So our goal is to strive to create quality programs to meet the needs of all learners. The proposed budget helps us provide the many services needed to ensure the fidelity of all of those programs that we offer while remaining in compliance with the law. The next slide lists many of the services that are offered by the special education department in order to meet the needs of the whole child. We do perform a variety of different types of evaluations to ensure that we look at each child through various lenses, and in turn to ensure that we're providing an individualized and exemplary educational experience that truly meets all of their needs. The social and emotional supports that are offered within the special education department are critical always, but even more so as we enter a school year following an extended school closure due to COVID. The next slide demonstrates a downward trend of out-of-district placements over the past 10 years. You can see on this slide here in 2010, 2011, we had 93 students in out-of-district placements. Fast forward to our proposed 21, 22, where we anticipate having 46 students out of district. This number can fluctuate dependent on student needs. However, we do based upon at the actual numbers in which we have at this time. And this downward trend is something our department is really, really proud of. And the reason that this can happen is because East Brunswick has successfully created many specialty programs that allow us to educate students in the least restrictive environment and in their community schools. Due to the support of the board and the hard work of the entire department, we offer a wide variety of specialized programs to meet the needs of our diverse population. One change that will occur for next year is we're going to be adding an elementary autism section. And this does not require any additional teaching staff because we will be decreasing a preschool section. So we really look at our projections to make those decisions on what is needed. And the last slide is a visual representation of the proposed special education budget, inclusive of many of the items that were included in the previous slides. So our budget is truly fiscally responsible, but keeping in mind at the heart of what we do, and that's making sure that we meet the needs of all of our kids and take care of the students in the best of our ability. So thank you so much again for your support and your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
I see a hand raised. Jeff, Barbara, was that your hand raised?
We have Lori,
Okay.
we have Jeff.
Okay, I saw Jeff first, then Lori, then who, Bernie?
Lee Wu.
Then Lee Wu. Jeff, Lori, Lee Wu.
Thank you. Ms. Bond,
Jeff,
can I
you're
ask
breaking
you
up.
just to return to that slide with
Jeff,
the,
you're breaking up.
of course. Is that, can you hear me now? Is
Yes.
that better?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so apparently it's a camera thing. So Ms. Bond, can you, the slide before that one, please. Can you speak to, for those who don't quite understand the mechanics behind out-of-district placement, what this actually means from a savings standpoint, and why this is so important that we're able to contain many of the areas that are needed right within the district as opposed to out-of-district placement. Tell us, can you tell, or either you or Mr. Giuliano speak to the impact of this drastic change over a 10-year period?
I don't know if Mr. Giuliani, if you wanted to speak to more of the fiscal impact. For us, it's important to have students in district schools and in their community schools as often as possible to comply with the law. One of the reasons for the least restrictive environment, but also for students. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to be in your community school. So because we've increased in our self-contained offerings and our specialty programs, we're able to educate students within our schools. The fiscal impact is quite great, given that out-of-district placements are quite expensive. So looking at this shift over time, and we chose to put 3 different years on, but it has steadily decreased since 10-11. There were no spikes or anything. It was a true decrease over time.
I'll speak to the fiscal aspect for a moment. And Mrs. Bond is absolutely correct. This has been a steady decrease over the years. Just put some dollars to this, and Ms. Bond is absolutely correct. In terms of the tuition costs are costly. They are expensive, and because they are for specialized programs that students require. If we use an average of $75,000 per student as a benchmark, some would be more, some would be less, but if we use that as a benchmark, the reduction in the number of students in out-of-district placements since 2010-11 has resulted in an excess of $3.5 million in reduced costs. Now, some of that has gone to offset creating programs in district, but certainly the net impact is favorable to the bottom line and to children, more importantly. And
just as a follow-up to that, and with those savings, could you speak to, there's been no compromise in bringing this back in-house, and is there any indicators that say we may actually be doing a better job bringing these students back in, keeping the controls, the psychological impact of staying in the district, and all the accoutrements that go along with that? What have been your findings as both from the instruction along with the, we'll call it the psychological impact of being able to stay home?
You know, having a student in our schools has a variety of benefits. One of which we have the ability, because our continuum of programs that we have in districts, we have the ability to have students participate with their general education peers as often as possible when they are in-house with us. We also have connections with athletics. So we have students who serve on athletic teams in a variety of different ways, participate in our clubs when they're a member of our school community. At a district, students certainly have that opportunity, but with transportation and the travel time, it's much more readily available for them when they're a member of our school community. So we find it to be extremely beneficial. I think it's also beneficial as students move on. We support students ages 3 to 21. So when you have students who are remaining with us through the age of 21, our in-house child study team, high school child study team and counseling department working with those students on post-secondary goals, where they're going. You know, I would love to keep, you know, every child we can keep in district, we should be working towards.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bernie, could you put us back on gallery view, please? Thank you. Lori, did you have a follow-up question?
No, actually, that was the comment I was going to make was, you know, looking back at those slides 10 years ago when I first got on board, that was one of the criticisms, is how much we spent to send kids out of district. It was something we always wanted to work on. So to see that a decade later, we've cut that number in half is particularly encouraging. So thanks, Kelly. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Liwu.
Yes, I have two easy questions for Ms. Bang. So totally, how many students are receiving the special education at this moment? Among the 46 among them, so by the cost percentage, what kind of percentage of those 46 out of district placement in the entire special aid budget?
Sorry, I'm muted. I apologize. So we have approximately, are you asking how many total students we have receiving special education services?
Yeah, this is my question number one.
Mm-hmm. So we have about 1,500 students that are receiving special education services, speech, you know, and full IEPs. And then your second question was the percentage of the budget?
46 students are out of district placement. The cost on those 46 by percentage among this entire budget by percentage, how much is that?
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking back at the pie chart here, and it looks like we have.
So
right?
if we look at strictly the special education department budget, 36% of the special education department's budget is allocated toward out-of-district tuition. However, there's also out-of-district tuition that is paid under the IDEA grant. So that's not the total amount that is within the district general fund budget, is not all of the tuition. To look at it in terms of a percentage of the special education department budget really doesn't provide the information that I think you're really looking for. I don't have a bottom line on the current budget at this moment, but keep in mind that the various services that are provided in the in-district programs, child study teams, and so forth, those are not contained within the special education department budget. Those are salaries, and those are accounted for separately. But Mr. Hong, I will provide that information. I'm making a note of it, and I will get that information to you in terms of the percentage of the overall budget.
The reason why I ask this question is to help taxpayers understand that why we are trying our best to expand in-district placement instead of sending our students to other school districts. Doing so will save us a lot of money. Thank you.
There's, and if I can supplement, I mean, there's no question in my mind that an in-district program is much more efficient in terms of services for students, not only in terms of its effectiveness in the program that's provided, the quality of the program that we can control, but also in terms of the financial impacts, without a doubt in my mind.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that's why I said my question is an easy question.
Heather, I see your hand raised.
Well, I have a comment and then a question. I just wanted to say kudos to the administrative team for bringing back so many students from out of district placement. I know it is a huge financial gain, but also from a special ed perspective, and actually from the full school population, it's not just the least restrictive environment that we're required to provide, which is fantastic, but it's also a better experience on the whole. I mean, what Ms. Bond was saying about the access to sports is completely true, but also the access to clubs and peers and the people that you grew up with around you. I also think it's worthwhile to mention that it's important for the other students, that you need the full diverse community to be in your school where you can know and grow up with all kinds of other students. When kids go out of district, they are, travel as far and they're not so much present in the community. So I think that's really valuable. And the other thing is I wanted to thank the administrative team, because bringing back students in district is not just, I think people often think it's just creating like one classroom. It's hire one teacher, create one classroom, get paraprofessionals, and we're good. And it's very, very intensive on the administrative side, on the child study team. It is a lot of work to create strong programs. And I think East Brunswick has that. And I just think it's fabulous. My question is super simple, though. I think it's for Bernie. Is ESY included on the budget for the summer is this budget ESY for 2022? Or is this budget ESY for 2021?
So, not reflected in the pie charts, but the budget that we are working on is ESY 2021, because the fiscal year begins July 1, 2021.
I knew that's when the fiscal year begins, but I wasn't sure when we start ESY, and I really didn't know. Thank you.
ESY will begin in July. I forget the exact date, but it's I think around mid-July, second week or so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Something I like to just point out to everyone every year, to those who are watching, that the schools, the private schools that accept our out-of-district placements are under no legal, there are no laws or regulations in the state to cap their tuition, correct, Kelly? So we are literally at their mercy. If they want to increase the tuition rates every single year, they can. Again, if a student needs that kind of specialized education, we are more than happy to provide it. But I have often thought it unfair that these school districts have a cap on their budgets, but yet these private schools can increase their tuition whenever they want. I just wanted to mention that.
That's a good point.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you very much.
So we are now back to Dr. Figueroa. Welcome back. And Dr. Figueroa will now speak to the student services budget.
Thank you, Mr. Giuliani. I'm happy to review with you the proposed student services budget for the 2021-2022 school year. In student services, we make time to strengthen relationships, help our students find peace in their day. We work with students' academic or social and emotional challenges. We work to make sure that we know when a student needs extra supports. So you see here some of the base parts of the budget. The student services budget encompasses school counseling, student assistance specialists, and nursing needs. And tonight, I'd like to point out a couple of additional areas in a little bit more detail. So thank you, Mr. Giuliani, for going to the pie chart. I want to point your attention first to the health and physical education instruction budget, which is only 2%. But I just want to remind you that although it's only 2% for this coming year, each building has funds for health and physical education that we will utilize as well. So our new supervisor of health and physical education, Mr. Meyer, and I will be working closely with our principals to take stock of what each school has and what each school needs. And we'll look to make sure that schools are equitable and resources are shared accordingly. I just wanted to point that out to you. I'd like to make a quick mention actually to improvement of instruction. That's 6% of our budget for the coming year. This is for cultural diversity and equity. This includes aligning curriculum, teaching practices, maintaining a culture that reflects the value and diversity of the entire community. This year, we're working on needs assessment, focus groups, and administrator and staff training. And last, I would like to discuss briefly with you some health services, which is obviously the lion's share of our student services budget, 87% of our budget. Effective School Solutions, or ESS, which I'd like to discuss further with you in a moment, is a big part of that. Part of the health services is also health supplies, 504 needs, nursing substitutes, medical services, flex program screenings, also our school physician consults on policies for us, physical exams for students in need, also approves medical home instruction and medical, he's consulted on medical emergencies as well. So just talking about effective school solutions, which you can see in front of you is such a big part of that pie. Effective School Solutions, or ESS, that we contracted with this year. ESS clinicians offer psychiatric care, supports to students with behavioral, social, or emotional challenges. They conduct weekly individual and group therapy, conduct monthly or bi-monthly family therapy. There are monthly parent support groups and monthly newsletters. This year, ESS worked closely with students with school avoidance, de-escalation, and with reducing stress. Mr. Giuliani has up the therapeutic counseling chart, which I'd like to go through with you in a little bit of detail. If we look at 2020, 2021, this year, you'll see that East Brunswick High School had one clinician, a caseload of 11. The total possible could have been 15. Churchill, one clinician. Again, the maximum would have been 15, may not have been the optimum, but maximum would have been 15. Hammersholt had half a clinician, caseload of 5. The flex program had half a clinician with a caseload of 7. There was no focus from this group on professional development. It was done as needed when it could be done. The proposed for next year, 2021, 2022, would be to add 1.5 clinicians to what we have this year. That would allow us to have one clinician at the high school with caseload, maximum caseload of 15. Churchill, one clinician, also 15. Hammersholt, one full-time clinician, a caseload of 15. And the Flex program, one full-time clinician with a caseload of 15. In addition, we would have half of a clinician or half-time clinician that can focus on professional development. The professional development piece is important for our staff. And that's something that will help our staff to work with the needs of some of the students that have behavioral issues. Now, looking ahead, which would be 2 years down the road, what I will propose to you next year, but I just want to give you an idea of where we're going. And this does have an impact on what Ms. Bond's presentation, fantastic presentation Ms. Bond had done. What I'd like to propose 2 years from now will be 2 clinicians with a potential caseload of 30 for the high school, 2 clinicians at Churchill with a 30 caseload potential. Hammersholt still would have 1 full-time clinician, caseload of 15. Flex program also 1 full-time clinician with a caseload of 15. By having the extra clinicians, professional development would be embedded throughout the buildings, which is important for ongoing professional development for our staff. But a big piece of this also, we would have the ability to look at possibly bringing in even more students in district because of the additional supports and behavioral needs of our students that are out of district. So that is a realism, something that I would like to see. I know Ms. Bond is working on that as well. So that is our goal. Just something to give you a look at what the next couple of years may look like. Are there any questions on that? Or anything?
Barbara? Barbara?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that report. And mine's more of a comment, and it's for the public and for us in general as a thank you for this commitment to having these kind of support services. As we all know, the pandemic makes these kind of counseling services even more important than ever. And it's amazing that our financial department, Dr. Valesky and yourself, Mr. Figueroa, and everyone involved, Ms. Bond and all that, to have this available when funds that we're bringing in are much lower. And the fact that you planned ahead to have this available hopefully will help a lot of our students with a lot of issues that they may have pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and moving forward in their lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. I just want to mention that without the board's support and the vision of Dr. Valesky and the support, the financial workings of Mr. Giuliano and his team, we wouldn't be able to get to this point. But thanks to you, we're able to move forward. And again, it affects the students in our district greatly. And that's what we're here for, to make things better for our students in any way possible.
Any other board members have questions? Heather?
Now, I just have a comment as well. I appreciate the way this presentation fits with the special ed presentation, because the increase in a clinician to the Flex program and the increased numbers projected in the schools has a direct relationship on the emotional well-being and behavior of our students, and that can actually stop students from needing the move to out of district or escalating to a point where their services are looked at in that way. I think it's a great deal of forethought on the part of the administrative team to not have those students leave the district. It's better for them to be here, but also from a cost standpoint, it's just wise. So I appreciate that we're moving upwards, especially with the full-time clinician for the Flex program.
Thank you, Ms. Gauss. I appreciate you saying that. I do want to also mention that the least restrictive environment is always what we're focusing on, as Ms. Fonda told us earlier, with our students. So to bring students home or to keep students home, that's great fiscally, but it's also best, we believe, for our students and our families.
Lou, I actually had a question. Very good report. Thank you. Our attendance, I guess our virtual attendance at extracurricular activities that we've been able to maintain throughout this pandemic, which is so crucial, again, to the social and emotional development of our students, to have that connection to extracurriculars. What would you say about the attendance during the pandemic as opposed to pre-pandemic?
Well, we've always had very good attendance pre-pandemic. Surprisingly, I think what happened during the pandemic is that we've had a lot of students that would normally maybe not stay after school or not be involved, that were able to be involved because they can just click on. So the numbers are good. Some areas better than we expected, some areas about what we expected. But I think if you ask the students, they would tell you, and I'm sure the staff as well, that we're all looking forward to everybody being back in school full time. And hopefully we'll have even more students want to get involved and realize that if I wasn't involved before the pandemic, I missed a golden opportunity, but I still have an opportunity to get back into our clubs and activities and our sports. So we're looking forward to that.
But what's interesting, totally agree. What's interesting though about what you said is there's so many different reasons why a student may not be able to participate after school, whether it's a transportation issue or a family responsibility issue and they have to get home. It might be something to think about to continue even just limited several remote virtual extracurricular activities so that those students do have the opportunity, the ones who really want to participate, but just have to get home for whatever reason physically. Right. So, it's another takeaway. Dr. Valesky, you mentioned several times about there are several things we've learned and accomplished during this pandemic that can be translated into what will be our regular, normal, quote unquote, school year, and hopefully, and this is definitely a good takeaway.
Absolutely. The primary focus is getting students back in school, and but we have clearly discovered some hidden benefits of using technology. And we've all grown administratively and in terms of our use of technology. So I think our application of technology to augment our face-to-face instruction back in school and returning to some sense of normalcy is going to make us a better school district.
Yep. Anyone else? Barbara.
Just a quick question about PPE was under, it said on the area is not yet approved. Is that something that we're going to continue? How, just maybe you could update us on the PPE situation.
We do have monies allotted for PPE. What we did last, or this year actually, is we purchased PPE when available, and we do have some extra PPE, but we also have some funds for additional PPE for next year. Mr. Giuliano, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yes. So, Mrs. Reese, what we are planning to do is continuing to look at what's happening in terms of the pandemic, what kinds of steps we need to continue to take, and those that won't be necessary. So we're not just adding things into the budget that may not be required. So we're keeping those on hold right now until we get a better handle on what the future may bring for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bernie, want to bring it home?
Certainly. So just briefly, as a reminder, we have a number of budget presentations coming up, March 4th and March 18th, when we will be coming into the closing days of the tentative budget. The governor is still scheduled to provide his budget address February 23rd. State aid data is released 2 days after that budget address. So that's when we'll find out what our state aid is. The tentative budget adoption is scheduled for March 18th. It cannot be delayed beyond that. We will then have a public hearing on May 7th. Certainly the time from the tentative budget adoption through up to the public hearing, we will continue to have conversations and potentially make modifications to the tentative budget. Final modifications will need to be presented, if there are any, at the public hearing. The final budget adoption will then occur May 13th, and that is it for the budget for this week.
Thank you. Good job, everyone. Okay. Next, we have a presentation on block scheduling at Churchill Junior High School and East Brunswick High School. Dr. Valesky, did you want to introduce us, or just Dr. Boley?
I'm just going to introduce Dr. Boley, who's going to drive the presentation. We're going to present to the public an abbreviated presentation that we already presented to the Board of Education to give the community an overview of our proposal to the board for block scheduling. And Dr. Boley has members of her administrative team, along with Dr. Mike Vanella, principal at the Brunswick High School, and Mr. Matt Hannes, principal at Churchill Junior High School. These are the two schools where we would propose to implement block scheduling. So they've been intimately involved in the discussion and the analysis that went into this. So Dr. Boley, you want to take it away?
Certainly. Thank you. Good evening. Our slides burn?
Ready. Here they come.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you. Block scheduling provides a better student learning experience. Understanding from our students and our parents the stress and the heavy workload that many of our adolescents bear, the high school scheduling committee has been studying this topic for a few years now. And we can say that one positive that the last year has provided us with is an opportunity to rethink how we are approaching teaching and learning. And we know that as we transition back, our classrooms now more than ever need to be more student-centered, with time during the day for both social emotional learning and addressing potential learning gaps. With that in mind, this is the time to implement block scheduling to most effectively structure the school day for our students. Block scheduling also provides a better teaching experience. Longer periods will provide the time for teachers to get to know students better as they plan coherent instruction to thoughtfully improve student learning through collaboration, coaching, and providing individualized feedback. The added time will allow teachers to make the important transition from the traditional role of giver of knowledge to the much more appropriate facilitator for learning. The block period will be structured in a way to allow students to explore content in depth and make deeper connections, be more active in their learning, and provide time for reflection. It's important to note that over the school year, the total number of instructional hours will continue to exceed the minimum number of hours per course that's required by the New Jersey Department of Education. Currently, students have a typical caseload of 8 classes, and this will remain the same with our modified AB block scheduling. No course offerings or electives will be reduced. With the move to the modified AB block schedule, there will be no longer any quarter electives, as they will all be modified into a semester or a full year course. The quarter electives that were previously offered will be expanded to include a semester's worth of material or combined with other quarter electives to create new and exciting semester elective offerings for our students. Our students with special needs will benefit from the block schedule by having the opportunity to be exposed to extended time within each subject. Block scheduling will provide instructional benefits through increased time for small groups, reinforcement of the lesson, the practice of the skills introduced, and instruction related to IEP goals and objectives. This structure also allows for flexibility that can be used for social breaks, interaction, and movement as needed. Block scheduling is better for higher level courses such as AP because of the depth of these courses. This format will provide extended blocks of time for reading, writing, critical analysis, and discussion without interruption. Block scheduling will provide more time for students to apply what they learned in the same room with an expert. This format is better to cover big ideas, concepts, and texts in longer blocks of time. It also allows for the day off for students to complete the substantial reading that all AP courses demand. With longer periods, students will be able to dig deep and sustain engagement in AP activities. Regular practice testing will be chunked into segments. This schedule also provides the time for a daily standalone homeroom period for community building and social emotional learning activities. A grade level cohort will stay together for their homeroom period all 3 years and all have the same counselor. This schedule provides a midday, longer lunch period break. You can see here that lunch A will be scheduled before periods 3 or 7. Lunch B will be scheduled in the middle of periods 3 or 7, and lunch C will be scheduled after periods 3 or 7. We realize that successful implementation will require ongoing support and professional learning opportunities for staff. Some of the initial steps will include revisions to our curriculum, our pacing guides, and teacher planning to ensure that the additional time is utilized effectively. For additional information, one may visit the district website at www.ebnet.org. And there you will also find a feature to pose any additional questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Bowley. Any questions from the board?
Questions, comments? Liwu?
Dr. Bowley, thank you very much for great presentation. Are you going to post your slides on the district website to help parents understand this block scheduling?
Thank you, Liwu. Yes, I am, as well as the an overview video that was shown at a couple board meetings prior. That'll be on there as well. As in addition, the FAQs that were compiled will be there for parents, and we'll add to them as parents put features in through the chat on the website.
Thank you very much.
Joyce, I imagine that we're going to be incorporating a lot of this introduction to block scheduling into our student orientations this summer. Would it be possible to provide some kind of, even if it's virtual, orientation for parents who want to come, kind of not a town hall format, but to give parents an opportunity to see the slide in detail and perhaps submit questions, but just to have a forum so that they have a total understanding of their piece in this component.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We are planning for student orientation for those students who are incoming to the various buildings, and also for students who, due to COVID and remote learning, are not new to the school per se, but have not physically been in the school yet. So including the parent piece is a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Just to add to that, we would like to also look at using some of our opportunities with our PTA parent nights at the schools to offer parents the opportunity to come and ask questions and have more specific related to the building based items.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yes, whatever opportunities we can take, PTA meetings, back to school nights. I don't think that this is just going to be something that parents and students, but right now we're talking about the parents, will just have questions about in August and September. I think it'll be an ongoing process, as it is for all of us, the learning process. And we also might get some good feedback from parents in terms of helping us to tweak things. So I think it'll also be important to try and come up with some kind of a mechanism to constantly get feedback from the students. What's working, what isn't working, an ongoing, not professional development for them, but to provide ongoing forums for them where they do have an opportunity to let us know what's working and what's not working.
President Becker, like you suggested, the feedback loop, but we will include the teachers as well in that feedback loop.
Oh, well, that goes without saying.
But also, I think this is a change that was well thought out before it became as a recommendation to the board. But the pandemic really created this environment, as Dr. Boley said, for us to explore acceleration of implementation and align it with our recovery from the pandemic. But I think not just tonight and not just the PTA meetings, this will require ongoing communication with the public and check in with them at a variety of board meetings between now and the start of the 2021-22 school year, so they can understand what we're about to undertake. And so we can kind of prompt their thinking about asking questions, because I know everyone's lives are really busy right now and they will continue to be busy. So it's our responsibility to keep it on the top shelf so people understand it's important and we're ready to answer their questions.
Dr. Valesky, ongoing professional development for the staff is absolutely crucial. Totally agree, and has to be ongoing, has to be 7 days a week almost, in terms of opportunity to get feedback and to ask questions and to discuss with their department chairs and supervisors and building administrators. I often think, though, that we forget that the students can also provide valuable feedback to us, because they're the ones, along with the teachers in the classroom, who are really seeing our plans translated into what's working or what isn't.
Totally agree.
Heather, are you scratching your hand or raising it?
Both.
Okay, scratch and raise.
It's all things. I did want to ask, what are we planning to do, or do we have a plan? I'm sure we do, but do we have a plan to evaluate the effectiveness of this as we move forward besides a feedback loop? Are there criteria that we'll be looking at long-term to see the benefits?
Dr. Boley.
Yes, so of course, the feedback and the qualitative data from the stakeholders is critical, but also taking a look at, we have quarterly data reviews with the building administration. So understanding any trends or changes in any of our student achievement data or social emotional data, visits to the counselors, anything such as that, definitely will be monitored. I know the counselors do a great job in tracking the patterns and trends of what students are presenting with when they come down to talk. So all of that would be taken into account.
I want to emphasize what Dr. Boley just said. It's not just about the quantitative data. It's about the qualitative piece too, and about the stress or the change in feelings that students have in this kind of format, and the teachers as well. We think it's going to be successful. We have every hope it will be successful. But that's a piece of this. That's why we are so passionate about this, because we think this is a mechanism that will reduce the stress of many of our students. But professional development will have to be a piece of this implementation to reduce the stress for teachers, so they can be prepared to implement this seamlessly.
Dr. Boley or Dr. Valesky, could you just speak for a minute to the process of looking at best practices from other districts and block scheduling models from other districts that you investigated as part of your process of coming up with a model for East Brunswick?
Well,
You want to talk to that, and you might want to involve some other members of the team at this point because they were directly involved in that.
definitely. So I do know that the high school scheduling team, of which Mr. Hannes has been a part of, has been studying this for a few years now. I'm not sure if Dr. Vanilla is on the call here, but Matt, if you'd like to speak to the process that the group went through over the last few years.
Sure, Dr. Bully. So when we started the process, what we wanted to do was look at schools that were in similar district factor groups, similar performance levels, size, and we also wanted to look at different types of schedule. It wasn't that we settled in on one type of schedule saying this is what we want to move to. We really did take the perspective of what is the optimal use of instructional time. So we looked at several different models, including was our current 42-minute period maybe the best fit? Some of the other schedules that we looked at were the AB style block, where you have 4 periods one day and 4 periods another day, with classes in a time frame of somewhere between 65 to 85 minutes range. We looked at schools that use a rotating drop block, where you have an 8-period day and you drop 2 periods per day. That entails a few things with lunch that are not feasible, where the school would have to have a unit lunch where the entire student body is eating lunch at a single time. It also impacted some of the senior privileges that our seniors at the high school have, with things like late in and early out, which are privileges that many students like when they get to their senior year, and we still wanted to be able to offer to those students who are interested in that. So that's why when making the determination to look at the AB block, that seemed to be the best fit. But we also did site visits, getting out to different schools to look at the AB style block versus the rotating drop block, and having students come along, teachers come along, so that we could get input from all the stakeholders and see what does it look like when you're actually going through that schedule, and what would be the best fit for us.
So you had teachers go along? I didn't know that. That's great. I'm glad we involved them at that level.
Yes.
And we also, in this analysis, involved a critical piece of this was Mr. Crotchfeld, who oversees child nutrition operations, and how do we accomplish serving students in this block? And so he had to be a critical piece of that factoring. And could we make this? Could this be achievable? Could we actually accomplish this?
And Ms. Becker, if I may, Matt and the scheduling committee also had a parent evening session at the high school and a student session where they got feedback from both the parent group and the student group who participated, discussing the need for something to change regarding the scheduling, the workload, and the daily stress and pressure.
Great, good to hear. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Great presentation, great work by all of you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bully. Thanks, Mr. Hannes. Thanks, academics team, all of you. Appreciate it.
Great job. Okay. Sorry, I just need to get back to the agenda. Okay. Thanks to everyone who gave presentations tonight. We are now up to the good of the cause of the public. Members of the public may provide comment at this meeting through Zoom by entering the URL, meeting ID, and password you see before you on the screen. In order to be recognized, use the chat feature, select the Zoom meeting host, and enter and send your name to the host. You will be recognized to speak when your name is called. Individuals will be invited to speak in the order in which we have received your request. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment, allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. To protect the privacy of all students and staff, concerns regarding individual students and staff members should generally be addressed by first meeting with the appropriate administrative staff. Public participation will be limited to 3 minutes duration. Is there anyone wishing to address the board this evening? Bernie, is there anyone in the queue?
I see no one, no messages here asking to speak.
Okay. Seeing none, I close the public portion. And we will move on to this evening's agenda. For the Board of Education agenda, we're going to be tabling item 2, the 2021-2022 school calendar at the request of several board members for further discussion. So there are 5 items remaining on the agenda. Can I please have a motion for items 1 through 5 on the Board of Education agenda?
So moved, Li Wu.
Moved by Li Wu, second by Lori. Is there any discussion? Mark? Mark
She moved the numbers. Is policies still on that?
Yes.
Okay. Policy
Oh,
150.
no, I'm sorry. I spoke too soon. 1, 3, 4, and 5 does not include policies.
Okay, so we're going to do 6 later.
Mark, do you want to separate out? I'm sorry, when I said I meant there were 5 items left, I meant that, sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you.
Yeah, currently the motion on the floor is for items 1, 3, 4, and 5. Policies is not one of them.
Okay.
And this is a roll call vote.
Discussion?
I didn't see any other hands.
Okay. Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Abstain from 5 and yes to the rest.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
and President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Can I please have a motion for item number 6, policies first reading?
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff, second by Lori. Is there any discussion? Mark Sismar?
Hi, thanks. On policy 152, since the bylaws were opened up for board elections, was there any discussion about adding a candidate statement or a question and answer period where board members could ask a candidate questions?
That was not a conversation that arose during the policy committee meeting.
Is that something that we can talk about to see if anybody else has interest in that? I would like to see that as a part of the policy.
So Bernie, how would we, do we open a discussion on this now? Do we put it on the agenda? Can we take off this policy and put it on the next agenda for a full board discussion?
So I think that part of what we will need, I think for purposes of getting through this right now, we can modify the motion to exclude 152. That would be the first thing, and we can go through that process. And then with regard to the suggestion, I think the first thing would be to ask Mr. Jacoby, board attorney, as to whether that is something that would be appropriate to put into the bylaw. So the first thing would be, and Mr. Jacoby would do that separately, of course.
Would it be, is it appropriate also to put this as an agenda item for a full board discussion?
So
Not
you-
just at the policy committee meeting?
Just so I understand, President Becker, you want to take it out of policy committee and you want to bring it to full board for this.
Yeah, I want to give, this way everybody will have an opportunity, not just the people on the policy committee. Full board discussion.
Yeah, I can research.
Mark, is that what you were thinking of? Mark? Is that what you were?
I was going to bring up 165 also. Their bylaws, to me, that's separate than a policy introduction or change. I would feel that bylaws would be something that the entire board would have input on. And I do have a comment about 165. What was the reason to change it to seniority alphabetical order for a roll call vote?
So, Mr. Sismar, the reason that came forth on 165 was in the instant situation that we have with a brand new board member who's first on the list, and perhaps not having the experience of being on the board, that may desire to have a later vote in the calling order. So that's pretty much what drove recommending a modification there and having it in seniority alphabetical order.
Okay, I have two comments on that. One would be, for lack of a better word, I think our board members are independent thinkers, and I wouldn't think they would need to follow in seniority order to vote. And also, if we look at Robert's Rules of Order for meetings, any member can pass during a roll call vote, and they are again asked at the end of that roll call vote for their response if they're not ready to vote when their name is called. So not only would junior members be allowed to institute the pass, any member of the board could institute a pass at any time. So I don't see the reasoning to have all senior members vote first and then have junior members vote later.
Again, can we again take these two, the bylaws?
My suggestion would be to table these two
Yes,
bylaws.
we could have a full board discussion.
And if they, Dr. Valesky or Mr. Giuliano could just send to me what the red line changes are, I can look at it. A lot of what happens in the bylaws flow from state statutes. So the state statutes in 18A dictate what roles are in terms of voting, etc. But I can take a look at it, and I can also address Mr. Sizmar's inquiries about statements. I'm assuming that statements if you're running for a board office, internally in the board office, and I'll look at that as well. And then I can give back a memo on that so that the full board can consider it at your next meeting. So I would just table those two. I don't want to opine this evening because I don't know what changes were made to those two policies.
No, as much information as you could provide, Matt, and get it to us ahead of time before the meeting.
That's not a problem at all.
That would be great.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Mark, was this what you were envisioning when you brought this up?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, terrific. All right, so then I'm going to modify the motion, Bernie.
So we need a motion to amend the original motion to remove those two bylaws 152 and 165.
What he said. Moved by Jeff. Second by Mark too. Is there any discussion?
Just a voice vote on that?
This is a roll call vote?
No,
just a voice vote first. That's
a voice vote. So yes, all those in favor?
Yeah.
We're voting on amending the policy to leave out those two. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. And now it is a roll call vote for the remaining policies.
That's correct. Okay, perfect. So going on to the roll call, Mr. Carangelo.
Yes.
Mrs. Chu.
Yes.
Mr. Sizmar.
Yes.
Mrs. Guas.
Yes.
Mr. Hong.
Yes.
Mrs. Lax.
Yes.
Mrs. Reese.
Yes.
Mr. Winston.
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to our curriculum and instruction agenda. I'd like to combine items 1 through 3. Is there anything anyone would like separated out? If not, can I please have a motion for it? I'm sorry, there's an echo. Somebody, member of the public, not have themselves on mute?
No, everyone in the public has theirs muted.
Okay, all right. Am I the only one who hears the echo?
Nope, I do as well.
That's weird. I have all my other devices off. Okay. I'd like a motion for items 1 through 3 on the curriculum agenda tonight.
So moved.
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff, second by Mark too. Is there any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Carangelo.
Yes.
Mrs. Chu.
Yes.
Mr. Sizmar.
Yes.
Mrs. Guas.
Yes.
Mr. Hong.
Yes.
Mrs. Lax.
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Pass. I just wanted to see what would happen. Well, because I'm Winston and it happens again. Yes. Pass.
Oh my God.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Okay. Moving on to the financial services agenda. Can I please have a motion for items 1 through 12?
So moved.
Who is that?
Lori.
Everybody's in slow motion. Moved by Lori, second by Barbara. Is there any discussion? Could everybody mute themselves unless they're motioning, or I'm hearing echoes from everybody. I don't know if it's just me. Okay, that's better. Can I please, any discussion on financial items 1 through 12? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
and President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the human resources agenda, can I please have a motion for items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Moved by Jeff, second by Mark 2. Is there any discussion? Secretary, please call the board, roll. Board roll.
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
and President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the, I'm sorry, I just lost my place.
Student Services.
Student services, thank you. I'm doing the agenda on my iPad. Student services agenda, can I please have a motion to combine items 1 through 3?
So moved.
Moved by Lori, second by Mark 2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Winston, President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. We have one item on our transportation services agenda. Can I please have a motion for item 1?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Moved by Lori,
Second.
second by Susanna. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Old business, we have one item on old business. Can I please have a motion for quoted contract award student transportation services?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Heather, second by Jeff. Is there any discussion?
Not my second.
I'm sorry?
I didn't second it. I don't know if you needed it official. I think it came from Mark too.
Okay,
I just didn't say anything.
okay. Thanks, Jeff. Mark 2, are you raising your hand? You had discussion? Yes.
No, I
Okay.
was second.
Okay. We have second. Do we have discussion? We have seconds. Do we have a discussion? All those in favor? All right. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Committee reports, information items, the good of the cause. First, we're going to lead off with Tony, our student rep. How are you? Good to see you. Very good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
How's everything going?
I'm doing well. I hope all is doing well with the entire board as well. The first thing I wanted to touch upon in my report was the motion that you guys just approved. to change to block scheduling. And I appreciate, and I speak on behalf of the student body when I say that I appreciate entertaining and being willing to make such a drastic change to the scheduling that we consider normal, just for the possibility of it enhancing the student experience and the learning experience and the development of skills that are helpful, not just in high school, but will be helpful in higher education, such as time management and not dealing with every class on every day. I have friends in other towns who know nothing but block scheduling. So I know that if their students are capable of it, then the East Brunswick students should be just as capable. And I have no doubt that it will be a success. So thank you once again for being willing to take such a lead. In other news, a survey was sent out to the seniors today in regards to prom. And this is a very exciting topic because it's a return to normalcy or some sense of normalcy. And it gets the seniors excited for, you know, the potential possibility of an event where everyone can kind of come together. And the survey just shows and highlights how important the student opinion is. So that way an estimate can be made based on how many people will arrive and whether it's possible to have an indoor prom or whether it's only outdoor given the physical restrictions and constraints mandated by the state. But a lot of that is still in development, but even just it got a lot of students extremely excited today when that survey was sent out. So I wanted to touch upon it. And another thing is the what Dr. Figueroa brought up earlier today about athletics. I wanted to mention how some student athletes are very excited to be able to play the sports that they want to play. And also something that's a little different is that they can have their parents in the stands. So, or in some cases. So this is nice for parents to have the opportunity to watch their students or watch their children play. And, you know, it's nice to see that this is still continuing despite the pandemic. And another thing that's new is that some of the games are being live streamed. So that way parents who might be away from school or might be working late or completely away from East Brunswick, they can be able to tune into the games. And sort of similar to block scheduling, how this is something that was implemented in quarantine, but has a lot of benefits that are unforeseen. And it was a nice kind of trial run, and we can trust it to be used moving forward. That will most likely probably be a staple of future athletic events. So yeah, it just ties into the idea of something, and not everything that has come about during quarantine is bad, and, you know, we can stick with it in the future. And that concludes my report for tonight.
I'm so glad we're able to put a smile on everybody's face about possibilities about prom.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you read the part of that memo about the fact that board members would get to go to the prom this year?
I didn't read that specifically, but that sounds extremely.
Yeah, we'd have to wear what we wore to our senior proms. So
Really?
I'm noticing. Oh, Dr. No, I'm sorry, that didn't involve you, just the 9 of us.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Don't worry, only kidding, Tony. And also, thank you for bringing up the fact that parents are able to watch something so simple. As a sport parent for so many years, something I just took for granted. And it's really a wonderful thing to be able to watch your child play in something that they're passionate about. So the fact that we can do this again in some way, shape, or form is great.
President Becker, if I could just, and I would like Lou to weigh in here too, because I think we need to clarify something just to emphasize what Tony just reported. We are allowing 2 family members at home events, but that is the limit because we have to maintain social distancing. We still have capacity things we have to worry about, capacity issues. But thank you to all the parents who have come, because you have demonstrated once again for East Brunswick Public Schools that we are able to implement this very quickly and safely and effectively. And if it wasn't for the parents being so cooperative, this would not be possible. So kudos to all of them. And I have to give a shout out to John McMiniman, who is, you know, he's listening tonight, but his video skill set and the way he conducted the live streams of the games, just phenomenal. And his picture within a picture and holding the scoreboard so you can watch the score and you can watch the athletes. It's just, I mean, like, John just thinks of everything. I'm just really proud of the team that we have and the quality of the program and providing that service to students and parents both. But as Tony said, that live stream event, I think is something that we can keep for the future. If you can't make it to the game, you can log into your computer and you can watch that competition from your room while you're studying, or you could, if you're away, so you can support your classmates and your East Brunswick students from afar.
Tony, have we had a virtual bear den?
I don't believe so. I think they are trying to. However, to be honest, President Becker, I don't want to misspeak and say that there has been.
I was just curious.
He's still reeling from the fact that board members are going to show up at the prom.
In what we wore to our senior proms, Victor.
President Becker, may I just add, thank you again.
No, you
Dr.
can't come
Valesky.
to the prom.
Dr.
Everybody's
Valesky
jumping on this.
mentioned that John McMenamin. I also want to thank John, and also want to mention and a special thanks to Dr. Vanella and his team for getting the protocols in place and working with us to get those protocols in place to make sure that parents could almost immediately start coming to games. I could tell you that just from the parents at the boys' senior night the other night, there was so many thanks and kudos to the team and to the board for allowing it to happen so quickly. A week earlier, there was no chance for parents to be there. And then, that quickly we were able to turn that around. So just thanks to the Dr. Vanilla and the administration at the high school, for his team for that.
Yeah, just one last thing that the governor announced at his press conference on Friday, and we invited our first parents on Saturday.
That's great. That's wonderful for the parents, great for the kids, but just nothing like watching your kid play. Jeff?
Yeah, I went to, I was at can you hear me?
You're breaking up.
I was at my daughter's game live, and one second. I was at my daughter's game live. It was awesome. Everybody so organized. Walked in. They kept me outside for 15 minutes so they could sterilize the space, which I thought was fantastic. Took my temperature when I walked in the door. Told me I had to sit on an X, and I didn't move. And it was great because the cop told me I don't have to sit on an exit. I did it. But no, it was really great, and it was so well organized. I appreciate how fast you got it done. And it was really cool to see my kid play live again. So thanks to everybody involved.
Good stuff. Susanna?
Now, I just want to add to all the comments about, just hearing, just such a wide range of areas in which the pandemic has affected, our operations, ranging from, we heard from the auditors who were so impressed of, finding a clean audit when, we had to change all the way we do business, right? Just overnight, change the way we do business, and yet come out of that with a clean audit, and just how outstanding that was. To hearing, what we're doing on the basketball field, and we've been talking a lot about, what we've been doing in the classroom, and even to this board, right? I had been a fan of going paperless for a long time. And guess what? We're paperless now. Choice of our own. Survived, and we've saved a lot of trees. So, there's, I think we're just so resilient, and it's just so great to hear that. And from Tony's report, how the students are just, finding just new ways to appreciate the little things, like, okay, let's figure out, how we're going to deal with prom this year or graduation. It's just wonderful. So just great thanks across the board to everybody.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks again. Any committee reports, information items for the good of the cause for the board? Mark 1.
I don't think it needs to be said, but I'm going to say it anyways. I almost wanted to make a motion, because you always hear, people saying there should be a vote of no confidence for this or criticism about that. I kind of wanted, even if it's symbolically, to have a vote of confidence. From the things I've seen and, from the comments of Mrs. Chu and everybody else tonight, I mean, from Dr. Valesky on down, the teachers taking on more than they ever have. security showing up on snowy days. I mean, I don't think people know, everything that goes on every day. And it's no fault, because the board is very transparent with everything that goes on. But like I said, maybe symbolically, a vote of confidence that the board has the back of the staff. As cops would say, we got your six. I mean, exemplary all around, from the top on down. So thank you very much. Maybe a symbolic vote of confidence.
Thumbs up for vote of confidence. Good idea, Mark.
Thank you.
Lee Wu, is that a thumbs up, hands up, or a hand raised?
Hand raised.
Got it.
Okay. So last Thursday, I had a policy committee meeting. So I missed the EBEF monthly meeting, but President Levitt, he did send me the report. So I want to tell everyone that during this difficult time, EBEF still approved 4 grants worth more than $16,500. It's a really great addition to our school budget. At the same time, he wants to let everyone know that this year again, there will be no pie dinner, this Partner in Excellence dinner, but EBEF will publish a celebration of excellence at journal. So hopefully, through this publication, EBEF can raise some fund so the EBEF can support our teacher more during this difficult time. So if anyone in public is willing and is able to help EBEF, please come out. Either contact Jack Levitt directly. So any penny counts. Thank you.
Okay, Susanna?
Just wanted to report the policy committee met on February 11th, and as you saw on the board agenda, there were a number of policies that were presented for the board tonight. I wanted to mention there were 88 pages of policy that were sent to us for review. And I just want to thank the administrative team for their hard work on staying on top of all the policies. A lot of this is, updating the policies to make sure that we're compliant with the laws, and the laws are always changing. It's a lot of work. I know when I got the packet for the policy committee, my eyes kind of bugged out. It's like 88 pages. But, and that's just reading it, the people that are working on it and, making sure that it's correct. It's a lot of work. So I just want to thank you all for that.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we do have a need for closed session. Whereas the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting. And the Board of Education intends to discuss matters as follows, those items listed in tonight's agenda. The length of the closed session is estimated to be 1 hour, after which a public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action will not be taken. Can I please have a motion to go into closed session? Moved by Lori, second by Mark II. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion carries. Board members, want to remind you to please log out of this session and into closed session. For those of you who joined us tonight, thank you. Stay safe.